But the only factor that made any difference at all was the size of the town. The smaller the town, the more people you got to town meeting. So we started looking at attendance, and we got into the old saw that has occupied a lot of us over the years, and that is, how come it's always such a beautiful day in May when town meeting takes place? And I drive up my street on the way to town meeting, and everybody else is out raking their leaves, or raking their lawns, or mowing, or planting flowers, or whatever the case may be. And how do we get people to town meeting? Well, you do it when the weather's miserable. You do it in late March or early April, as we did up until, I believe, 1975. And that's the recommendation that we came up with. And that's it's a simple recommendation, but we absolutely appreciated the complexity of it, because it turns everybody's life a little more complicated. You got to shift the whole calendar 5 weeks, including budget preparation starting earlier, and being uncertain of what the funding is going to be and where the money is going to come from. One of the things we heard consistently from town managers and administrators, and a couple of FinCom members, from not necessarily from Westford, but a couple of people who had experience in the FinCom, is an administrator who knows their business knows what the money is going to be. Not to the dollar, not to the 1/10%, but they know what it's going to be. They probably know more about it than the legislature does, because until the final iteration of politicking in Boston, nobody knows what the actual numbers are going to be. But we've got a pretty good grasp of it. So we thought it was manageable. The FinCom has taken a position otherwise, and I know that a lot of the town departments are concerned about the wrinkles it would give to them and the additional work of trying to move the calendar earlier into the year. We did not take a position on what should happen with town elections as a result of changing the date of town meeting. And we said, gee, that's going to be an interesting question, and left it at that. And I apologize, but I don't remember what the wording of the article is in the warrant. What does it recommend, or what does it ask the voters to approve?
It keeps the elections in May, as they are now, on the first Tuesday of May.
Okay, I knew we had to put a place marker in, and I wasn't exactly sure. And of course, the issue that raises is that the people who are newly elected don't own it until after the town meeting. So it's an interesting change, and we didn't take a position on pro or con as to whether it would be a good idea or not. The other article that comes close behind ours is to eliminate the quorum requirement for special town meeting. I just want to point out that we did not either sponsor that article or take a position on it. It's an interesting one, and I have an opinion, but our committee didn't really look at that at all. So that's about it, unless people have got questions.
Thank you, George.
Okay.
Oh,
I don't have any questions, but as George said, I sat on the committee with John and Bob and George, and it was a lot of fun. I learned a great deal. But Mr. Bryan's book, I did run the statistics, and I provided them on the back. And I want to share a little bit more of the research that was done beyond the committee. In other words, you all were good teachers. You got the students to go out there and learn on their own. For town meeting's consideration, if the town meeting date is changed to March or April, it won't be a set date and time. In other words, every so often it's going to conflict with one of the religious holidays, and we'll have to shift it either back or forward. Now, this might cause a little scheduling heartburn in the schools, and you might have a little missed attendance because there's a little uncertainty as to exactly when that town meeting date is. The town clerk pointed out to me that many of our senior residents actually summer in warmer climates. They must be nice. They might not be home in time for town meeting if it's in late March, or they might have to return home early. She said that we might also lose some of our favorite tellers at town meeting if we shift it that late or that early. Another person expressed a concern to me, and this would be a very interesting discussion sometime, that by moving town meetings so far ahead of the election that it now becomes a campaign platform where only those running for public office run to the microphone and speak, and the rest of us are shut out. I don't think that'll happen.
Not to worry.
But just so that you know, I ran the statistics, and does Westford really have an attendance problem? And statistically speaking, the answer is no. We're slightly lower than the average, but we fall within a normal standard deviation. In other words, we've had some town meetings with very low attendance, but we've had some with spectacularly high attendance. Say the East Boston Camps Purchase is one that comes to mind. That was around 800 people, and that falls within the statistical range for a town our size. When you have a hot issue, you should expect attendance that high. And that was the information, that was the response I got from all responding town clerks, is that set everything you know aside, date, time, entertainment, what brings people to town meeting is the issue. And so these are just things to think about when you go to cast your vote as to whether or not we should be changing the town meeting date.
Okay. Thank you, Val. Again, all good things that you think it's an easy question until you really start looking at it, and it gets more and more complicated. So really appreciate folks like you that actually look at that. The next article is Article 23 we're going to discuss. And since Kelly Ross happened to show up, I said I wasn't going to put him on the spot, but I actually asked him ahead of time. So do you want to talk for a few seconds on what's behind that?
Special town meetings currently require a quorum of 200 voters. A good thing about this is that special town meetings, while we normally have one in the fall, they can conceivably pop up at any time for certain issues like the East Boston Camps issue or anything else. And so there's always the concern when there's a special town meeting, did we get the word out? Do enough people know that there is a special town meeting being held? And so a good thing about a quorum of 200 voters is you can feel pretty good if 200 people show up that the word got out. But there are a couple of potential downsides to having a quorum requirement of 200 voters. In recent years, we've had a few special town meetings where there has been a quorum call. After the meeting has started, there weren't 200 voters still in attendance, and so that caused the special town meeting to be finished for that evening. And the downside of that is we generally will try to resume the meeting on another date. There's a cost to doing that, the cost of getting the police details back in place, the cost of the election workers, and so forth. There's also the possibility that we won't achieve the quorum when we try to continue the meeting. We won't get back to that 200 voters, and so articles at the end of the special town meeting might go unacted upon. And in some cases, this can have a cost to the town. I remember one a few years ago where we needed an article, and it was the last article of the special town meeting, to create a sewer district for the center of town, and we needed to do that in order to do the permanent bonding for the sewer. Because we lost the quorum, we couldn't do that. So we had to continue with temporary bonds until the annual town meeting. And so we paid like 6 or 7 months worth of interest costs that we otherwise would not have had to pay. So there was a cost to having an article go unacted upon.